I was on the ladder to decorate the math team's anniversary's banner when suddenly Thomas bumped into my ladder.
Nerd, you're blocking my way, and your club is full of losers. What's there to celebrate?
If so, you should join us too.
Why?
For a basketball team's captain, you couldn't score a single goal during the last match. Loser. Hearing that, Thomas got angry and shook the ladder to take revenge on me. Unfortunately, because I didn't hold on tight, I immediately fell down on top of him. For many girls, Thomas is the high school's god. He's toned and handsome with mad basketball skills. However, to me, he's just a jerk. Ever since I was 7, I've always been his bullet target. Nerd and teacher's pet were what he called me. I wished I had the opportunity to teach that bully a lesson. After Thomas made me fall, my leg hurt a lot. Anna, your leg is bleeding! One of the girls panicked and screamed. Immediately, they took me to the nurse room. Actually, my injury wasn't too serious, just a few scratches and bruises on my knee. However, my over-worried BFF asked the nurse to bandage my whole leg. Come on, don't overreact. It's just a small wound. Better safe than sorry, Lillian. My brother was once infected because of this kind of injury. When I was sitting in the chair, waiting for her to help gather my things up, suddenly Thomas appeared. He saw my bandaged leg and said coldly, "You seem fine." Is that all you could say?
Your fault for not holding onto that ladder.
Do you know that because of this, I'll have to cancel a lot of plans? I can't even do simply daily tasks.
Fine. I'll help you until you can walk normally.
I was beyond surprised. Really?
So stop rambling about it, okay?
I was about to tell him that I was fine, but suddenly a plan popped into my head. Time to teach that bully a lesson. From that day on, I faked being hurt to order Thomas around. Every day, he had to drive me to school and help me move between classes. Sometimes I asked him to run errands for me, like cleaning or collecting stuff. One day, when I was in the girls' restroom, I even ordered him to get me toilet paper with the excuse that there was no paper and nobody around to help. But when the basketball team's captain opened the door, he was surprised to find that there were many girls inside. They screamed loudly and called Thomas a pervert. He was flustered with embarrassment and awkwardly ran away. His miserable face was so funny to look at. Although I didn't like him very much, I had to admit that Thomas was responsible. He always did what I asked without complaining, no matter how difficult or absurd it was. It actually impressed me and softened my heart. That day, while helping me carry a large box home, Thomas was constantly looking at his watch. What's wrong?
I have an important match in an hour. Recruiters from the university would come to watch. After we lost the last match, I really need to perform better.
Why didn't you tell me sooner? If you're busy, I can go home by myself.
What about your legs?
He was uneasy about letting me go home with a sore leg. But after listening to my persuasion, he agreed and left. When I got home, I was shocked to find out that Thomas had left his backpack in my box. Curious, I opened the backpack and saw a pair of basketball shoes along with a tactical notebook inside. I tried calling him to come back, but he never picked up. I pondered a lot whether or not I should bring those to him. If I ran there, Thomas would know that I faked being injured to trick him. But if I didn't do anything, he may not be able to play well without his gears. In the end, I decided I had to do the right thing and immediately rushed to the place where Thomas was playing. Luckily, I was able to arrive a few minutes early before the game started. When Thomas saw me breathlessly running to him, he was surprised.
You can run?
Yep, sorry for lying. By the way, you left this in my box, I said as I handed his backpack to him. He seemed very shocked. I thought Thomas was about to give me an earful, but no, after a moment, he smiled at me. I'm sorry too for always bullying you, and thanks for giving this back to me even though you had to endure me. That match, Thomas played like a star and shined brightly on the field while I was cheering enthusiastically for him in the stands. In the end, Thomas and I became closer. He stopped teasing me too much, and we hung out with each other a lot more.
Looking at the prom poster on the wall, I thought to myself, damn it, the prom will happen in just a week, and yet not a single guy in the school invited me there. Minus 2% of the male students who were gay, 53% who already had a partner. That meant there were more than 348 male students who thought of me as an unattractive nerd. Geez, they didn't know that my body also had a sexy part. It's my brain. At lunchtime, my girlfriends excitedly talked about the upcoming prom and made a huge to-do list. I was the only one who didn't join the fun. Micah, my best friend, was curious and asked me, Jane, who's gonna be your partner that day? Well, nobody's gonna do that. Don't ask such a difficult thing. July and her minions appeared out of nowhere. They gleefully laughed as they made fun of me. It wasn't the first time that happened. For a long time, July was known as the most beautiful, but also the meanest blonde in our school. She always chose me as a target for bullying. Why are you always so mean to me? Because you're ugly. Isn't it clear? July laughed manically. That drove me crazy. Dare to make a bet? If I become the prom queen this year, you'll have to wear the school mascot costume from now until the end of the school year. I pointed at the worn-out chicken suit in the room's corner. And what if you lose? Then I'll wear that suit. You look worse than that, but fine. I accept your challenge. You'll learn that you can never win against me. After saying that, July turned and left. When I calmed down, I realized how stupid I was. Beating July in a beauty contest? That's impossible. Micah and my girlfriend started encouraging me. They promised to fully support me in this competition. Thanks to that, my confidence was slightly boosted. The very next day, we regrouped to make a plan. After counting all the possibilities, my chance of winning against July was about 2%. That sucks. If we can't win against the opponent, we just need to ruin them. Micah suddenly suggested, foul play against July? Not bad. I felt unsure about it, though. One day, after shopping for a prom dress with my girlfriends, I went home alone. When I was going through a deserted area, I suddenly heard a loud scream. I approached it curiously and discovered a shocking scene. A drunk man was threatening July. I was hesitant at first and thought about leaving her there since we were rivals. But looking at her weak resistance, I couldn't bear it. I reached for a nearby board and quickly rushed there and hit the man so hard that he fell over. Stop! That's my dad! July suddenly exclaimed. Surprised, I stopped immediately as the man quickly ran away. After we calmed down, we sat down and started talking. Turns out, July's dad was an alcoholic and often abused her. On the outside, July tried to appear mean and sarcastic, but in reality, she was very pitiful. July begged me not to tell anyone at school because it embarrassed her. Seeing her pitiful appearance, I nodded in agreement. A few days later, when the prom finally took place, as predicted, July was selected as the prom queen. I sadly looked at the chicken suit and thought about my stupid challenge earlier. Geez, so I would have to stick with it until the end of the year. But suddenly, while giving a speech on the stage, July broke the crown in half. She called me up on stage and gave me half of it. Real queens fix each other's crowns. You're absolutely a real queen, Jane. And we hugged each other. At that moment, all hatred disappeared. Since that day, July has changed a lot. She's no longer bullying anyone or being mean to people. And the most special thing is, we have become very close friends.
It's difficult to explain to people that a young girl like me has Alzheimer's, a disease that seems to only happen to people over 70 years old. Hi, I'm May. A few months ago, I noticed that my body was full of abnormal signs. My arms kept twitching uncontrollably, and sometimes I couldn't remember my way home. After being examined at the hospital, the doctor concluded that I had Alzheimer's disease. Somehow, God had decided to put me through a really tough test. And what's worse, my disease cannot be cured. My parents tried everything to help me, but as the medical costs kept increasing but with no results, they started to become desperate and impatient. Once, when I was boiling water to make a cup of hot cocoa, my Alzheimer's disease suddenly hit me. I completely forgot what I was doing, and as a result, my whole kitchen burnt down. My parents were very angry about this. Stop making trouble! This family is already unfortunate enough!
I'm sorry, Mom.
Just don't do anything else. After saying that, they turned and left. As for me, I could only cry. But that was not the only problem. Sometimes when I was out, I forgot my way home. I had no choice but to call my parents for help. And of course, they were very annoyed and kept scolding me for wasting their time. Still, I understand that they were just too tired, so I don't hate them at all. Because of my illness, I didn't have many friends. Every weekend, I volunteered to help out at the local nursing home. Thanks to that, I got to know Mr. and Mrs. Smith. They were my closest friends. Mrs. Smith also had Alzheimer's, but she was very lucky to have a loving husband who always took care of her. I felt a great deal of sympathy and admiration for them. If my time in the nursing home was heaven, my time in school was hell. I always received pitiful and curious looks from others. Once, while I was having lunch in the school canteen, my arm suddenly twitched again. It hit the bottle of juice and made it spill all over my body. Everyone's eyes immediately turned to me. They whispered to each other and began laughing. Because I felt so embarrassed, I immediately rushed to the bathroom to wipe the stain off my shirt. I was just taking off my shirt when suddenly a guy walked in. Pervert! A pervert is in the girls' restroom! I screamed in panic and threw things at his head. Calm down, this is the men's restroom. I looked around bewilderedly and realized that he was right. Embarrassed, I quickly gathered my things and left. Wait, take this. Surprisingly, he gave me his jacket. I shyly took it from him and suddenly, my heart started beating very fast. From the name tag on the jacket, I learned that his name was Lion. From then on, I couldn't stop thinking about him. A few days later, I looked for Lion to return the shirt. Thank you for this. I shyly handed it towards him. You're welcome. By the way, do you have a map? No. What do you need it for? Because I'm lost in your eyes. Lion said and winked, making my cheeks red. Can I have a date with you this weekend? Why do you want to date me? Don't you see? We're very compatible. Both our bodies have 70% of water. That smart return made me chuckle. He was undeniably funny. Since then, we've become closer, and I also shared with him about my Alzheimer's disease. At times like that, he just silently listened to me and gave me warm words of encouragement. For the first time, I felt so comfortable around someone my age. Once on my way home, I suddenly felt uneasy with a feeling that I was being followed. When I turned around, I found Lion surreptitiously hiding his large body behind a lamppost. I asked surprisingly, "What are you doing there?" Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. It's just, I'm afraid that Alzheimer's might make you forget your way home again. So, you're following me? Yeah, I've been doing this for a while. His answer made me very moved. I didn't know he was so attentive. Day by day, my feelings for Lion were getting better. However, we still had small conflicts from time to time. It was mainly because of my Alzheimer's disease. I often forgot about our date and made him wait. Or sometimes my sudden convulsions made him panicked. Even though he didn't say it, I knew that he was getting tired. One day, I decided to introduce him to Mr. and Mrs. Smith, my close friends. We had a lot of fun that afternoon, and Mr. Smith kept telling Lion about his youthful memories. Then, as we were talking, I suddenly discovered that Mrs. Smith had disappeared. Maybe her Alzheimer came back again. We immediately informed the staff and went to look for Mr. Smith. A few hours later, we found her in a vacant lot near the nursing home. Mrs. Smith's body was covered with mud as she kept babbling about old memories. When Mr. Smith came to hug her, she couldn't stop screaming. Witnessing that scene, I noticed that Lion looked absolutely terrified. After taking Mrs. Smith to the hospital, we sat down to comfort her husband. "Don't worry, she'll be fine." I gently put my hand on the poor man's shoulder.
No, you don't understand. She'll only get worse. If only she died before me.
What are you saying?
If I die first, nobody will take care of her. The truth is, taking care of someone with Alzheimer's is exhausting. There are many times when I just want to be free, to forget about all this.
Mr. Smith hugged his face and cried like a child. At that time, I unconsciously looked towards Lion. His eyes seemed to be wavering. After that day, I stopped contacting Lion and he never called me back. I understood that it was over. Even though I was sad, I didn't want to selfishly keep him with me. We certainly have no future together. A few weeks later, my family decided to move to another place to live. I sent a text to inform Lion as a farewell. When our car started moving, suddenly from the rearview mirror, I saw Lion running towards me. I told Dad to stop the car immediately, got out and ran towards Lion. "What are you doing?"
Wait! Please! Don't leave yet! I have something to tell you!
Lion gasped for air and tried to talk to me. "I'm sorry for not getting back to you. It was true. I was very worried about our future." "It's okay. I understand that we need to end it." I sadly lowered my head.
No, that's not what I mean. Even though I'm scared, I can't stop loving you.
Tears started welling up in my eyes. "But we won't get anywhere. One day I'll be like Mrs. Smith."
I know, but I want to live in the present, to make more beautiful memories with you. Please, let me be with you, May, even if our happiness might be short-lived.
Lion said as he extended his hand towards me. What he said made me cry. I took his hand and hugged him tightly. I know that there will be many difficulties waiting for me ahead, but that's okay, because now I have Lion by my side.
I ran across the street, narrowly dodging a speeding car that zoomed past. I just couldn't believe it. My girlfriend was on the TV! I didn't even know she had something like this going on! I was just walking home from spending all day revising my novel when I heard her familiar voice. I thought for sure she was at work, but when I saw her face on the screens that lined a used TV shop, I stopped in my tracks and bolted towards it. I must have looked like a psycho. My hands and face glued to the glass window, staring intently at how pretty she looked on screen. It looked like she was being interviewed for something. And then, she reached behind her and took out a book. And everything I knew, everything I loved in the world, just died in front of me. Hi, I'm Simon, and this is how I got back on the girl who stole my novel. Do you think you have an idea for a great story? Post the title in the comments below, and give a like to the ones you want to see animated. Now, let's get back into it. Ever since I was a little kid, I've always dreamed of being a writer. But my parents wanted me to be a doctor. They said there was no money in writing. Even my friends weren't so optimistic when I told them I was gonna finally go after my dreams after years of being a surgeon. And just a little bit, I think they were right. At the start, at least. I had a hard time writing. Most of the time, I'd just sit in front of my computer staring at a blank screen. Sometimes my brain goes too fast that my fingers can barely keep up. And through it all, I was broke. I had carved a significant chunk of my savings by just focusing on being a writer. I still believed I can do it, though. I believed as soon as I finished my work, I could sell it. And then, it will all be worth it. Unfortunately, I think I'm the only one who believes in my dream. I've dated and lost so many girls who left me as soon as they realized that I was a struggling artist. It was pretty lonely for a while. Until I met Anna. Anna was a breath of fresh air. She was a dreamer just like me, and she was the only one who actually motivated me to go after my dream. She was my taskmaster, Every morning, she'd wake me up with a steaming cup of coffee with a sweet, motivational phrase on a sticky note. She would plant a kiss on my forehead and remind me, one day, I'll be the wife of a really famous writer. And so, I worked really hard for her. I would plot out my book during the day, and at nights, when my brain goes online, I would write until my fingers ached. But it was all worth it. It was all for Anna. She was pushing me towards my dreams, so I wanted to make hers come true. She wanted a good, comfortable life, and I swore I was gonna give it to her. Anna was the first to hear about any ideas that brew in my head. She was my critic, my muse, and my editor in one. I would tell her what I planned to do with the story, and she would tell me whether it works or not. The best feeling for me is when I tell her a twist that happens, and her eyes grow wide out of surprise and excitement for what happens next. And after 6 months of never going out of the house and having no real job, I finally did it. I finished the most important thing I have ever done. It felt like my very own baby. And when I handed it to Anna, I had a surge of jumbled feelings. There was a pit in my stomach, but at the same time, I was brimming with joy. But then I also felt sad because the story was over, and I missed the characters I wrote on the page. And now, I was giving my baby away for it to be judged. Anna loved it. She loved it so much she squealed and jumped around yelling how I was gonna be a millionaire. I never knew that trusting Hannah with my manuscript was the worst thing I could have ever done. As soon as I saw her bring up that book during the interview, I knew what she had done. It was no wonder she'd been coming home very late a lot, and she was off on some meetings all the time. She'd been having publisher meetings, and now she'd succeeded. The book had sold and is in print, except for the biggest, most glaring difference. Her name was where mine should have been. That scheming, thieving piece of trash sold my work as her own. And beside her on that interview was a man I looked up to my whole life. I idolized Mark ever since I was a kid. And now, he was holding my girlfriend's hands and kissing her on national TV, telling everyone he was my stolen book's editor. I was so mad I punched that glass window and shattered it. So, yeah. Now I'd been swindled out of my life's work, lost my girlfriend to my idol, and had a bill for a shop window I can't afford. On top of all that, I was flat broke. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't even afford a lawyer, so I did the one thing I could. I wrote. I wrote about everything that happened. I took up a day job waiting tables, and I used every bit of time I wasn't waiting tables and devoted it to finishing my new work. It went faster this time, and I had a fire under me that made me do things I thought was impossible. In just 2 months, I finished my first draft, and I immediately went to work sending copies of it to every publisher in town. I received rejection after rejection after rejection letter. I hit rock bottom. I was out of time. And out of money. While Anna was enjoying her best life, flying from city to city promoting the book she stole and making millions off of it, I was down in the dumps, poor, and feeling like an utter failure. Until one morning, I woke up with determination out of nowhere. I told myself she deserved to be exposed. And so, in a last-ditch effort, I sent my book to Netflix. And let me tell you, I still remember the exact moment I received the email that changed my life. I was at work, holding a tray of drinks on my way to table 42. I glanced at my email, but when I saw it was from Netflix, I rushed to open it. Before I could even read it, a call came, and there was no amount of professionalism in the world that would have made me contain the insane happiness I felt at that very moment. In shock, I dropped the tray and jumped and celebrated as if I just scored the winning goal. They're doing a show about my book! Netflix is doing a show about my book! My manager came over with a sinister look on his face. That's nice, but do you mind not shouting at my restaurant? Keep your personal matters to yourself. You're causing a scene. Clean this mess up right now or you're fired! Well, up yours, Steve! I quit! Oh, and by the way, Steve, I know you've been stealing from the cash register. And that you're taking all our tips. I'll make sure to mention that to the owner during my exit interview. You're not getting one! I don't care. Catch me on Netflix, if you can afford a subscription. I walked out of the place a free man. Netflix went on production pretty quickly. They told me they were eager to ride the wave of Anna's stolen book, so they released the show just as her book reached the top 10 bestsellers list. In one night, my entire life changed. Everyone recognized me on the street. My story was the talk of the town. Everyone was talking about the character in it that was so eerily familiar and similar to Anna. They hated all the betrayal that befell my character after years of working on his book. See, my story never mentioned her, but I made sure to put in every detail that would make people think it was her. In that story, everything that happened to me in real life was mirrored on the screen. I asked Netflix to do something special for me. I requested that they only release the finale on a very specific day, Anna's birthday. When the final episode of the show dropped, the world went wild. The very last 10 seconds of the show featured an after-credits scene, and in it was a photo of Anna and me during happier days, before she betrayed me. Tweets rolled in. News articles began popping up. TikToks of people shook about the revelation. Facebook posts, Instagram stories, even YouTube videos. Everyone was talking about Anna, and how she brazenly stole my work and sold it as her own. I can only imagine she was hiding away somewhere, spending her birthday in shame. Finally, I had my vindication. But that was only the beginning. With Netflix money coming in, I was finally able to get myself an amazing lawyer. I went after her new boyfriend, and her publisher. It was intellectual theft of the highest order, and I planned on bankrupting them to their very last penny. Our trial was publicized as if it was some sort of Kardashian scandal. Every news outlet was there, and when the sentence was being read out, Anna, in a desperate move, tried to run. She weaved and dodged the officers in court like an eel. She managed to squeeze past them, and she ran for the doors. But she wasn't quick enough for me. I stuck my foot out just a little, and she tripped and rolled, splaying onto the floor in front of all of the cameras. I've got to say, even after millions of dollars being awarded to me by the court, the most satisfying outcome of that trial was seeing Anna's stupid face on every headline as she fell onto the courtroom floor, her hair wildly flailing behind her and her eyes wide and crazy. She's still a meme to this day, and I've never been prouder of anything.